They told you to be kind, to be fair, to do the right thing, to follow your heart, to treat people how you want to be treated. And you believed them because you're decent, because you wanted peace, because no one told you the truth. The world doesn't care if you're good. It cares if you're useful. And if you're not, it will use you and leave you and never look back. You think you're losing because you're not smart enough, not experienced enough, not lucky enough. But the real reason? You don't know the game you're in. And worse, you still believe there isn't a game at all. You've been taught to see life like a moral drama. Good guys, bad guys. Do the right thing and the universe will reward you. But life is not a moral drama. It's a strategic field, and the people who win aren't always the kindest. They're the ones who understand the rules underneath the rules. The game beneath the surface. While you've been trying to earn respect by being soft-spoken, they've been taking territory with clarity. While you've been afraid to upset people, they've been manipulating outcomes behind the scenes. While you've been trying not to rock the boat, they've been building ships. And what's worse? You'll look around one day and realize you were surrounded by people who smiled at you, but never saw you. Because the honest, open, emotionally raw version of you was never dangerous enough to be respected. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He didn't write The Prince to teach cruelty, he wrote it to describe reality. He saw that people praise virtue in public, but respond to power in private. He saw that the ones who survive aren't the loudest. They're the ones who read the room, manage emotion, and control outcomes. He saw that being moral in a world that isn't is a trap. But this video isn't a guide to becoming ruthless. It's not a call to abandon your soul. It's not about dominance or deceit. It's about something far more important: becoming strategically conscious. It's about developing the awareness to know when you're being played, and the presence to choose your moves like a man who's already seen the ending. This is about reclaiming clarity in a world built on illusions. If you've ever felt overlooked in rooms you were qualified to lead, been too emotional to say what needed to be said, silenced yourself to keep the peace, wondered why good intentions weren't enough, or asked why you're stuck even though you're doing everything right, you are exactly who this message is for. You don't need to become someone else. You need to become aware. Because the truth is brutal. You're either playing the game or you're getting played. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is your soul waking up to a deeper kind of power. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that knows. Let's begin. Let's begin with the truth you've tried to avoid your whole life. The world is not fair. It was never meant to be, and it never will be. You were told to be fair, to play nice, to believe that what you give is what you get. But then you grew up and started noticing something. The loudest voice wins the room. The confident fool gets the promotion. The manipulator walks away with the reward, while the honest man is left behind, wondering what just happened. You were trained to operate from an emotional code, but the world operates on power dynamics, not feelings. That gap between what's true and what's rewarded, that's where your pain lives. That's where your confusion festers. That's where your belief in fairness becomes a slow, quiet betrayal of your own potential. Machiavelli understood this gap better than anyone. He wrote, "The way men live is so far removed from the way they ought to live, that he who abandons what is done for what ought to be done will rather learn to bring about his own ruin than his preservation." In other words, the man who insists on idealism in a brutal world isn't noble. He's naive. And in the name of being good, he allows himself to be broken. This isn't a rejection of ethics. It's a rejection of delusion. Because when you don't see the game, you don't know how to protect your soul. The very people you're trying to be good for are often the ones who are reading your goodness as weakness. They're testing how far they can push you, how much they can take, how long you'll stay quiet, how easily you'll give up your edge in the name of being reasonable. And the worst part? You'll feel guilty for noticing it. Because the world has conditioned you to believe that speaking truth is aggression, and that your silence is integrity. It's not. It's submission. So here's the question you must ask. Where in my life am I mistaking silence for virtue? Who benefits from my obedience? Who gains from me pretending the rules are fair when I know they're not? Because the truth is, while you've been trying to win at the game of fairness, others have been playing a completely different game. The game of leverage, the game of optics, the game of emotional manipulation, the game of perception, politics, and quiet power. And let's be honest, you've known this for a while. You've seen the coworker who flatters the boss and leaps ahead, the friend who weaponizes kindness to control, the partner who plays emotional games but never gets called out, the influencer who tells you to stay humble while building an empire behind the scenes. You've seen how the world works. You've just been afraid to admit it, because admitting it means everything you were raised to believe starts to fall apart. But maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Because here's what Machiavelli understood. When you drop the illusion that the world is fair, you stop asking for justice, and you start claiming responsibility. You stop waiting for permission. You stop moralizing other people's behavior. You stop thinking pain means failure, and you start learning how to move with eyes open. This is what true power looks like. It's not brute force, it's awareness. It's the man who sees clearly and still chooses who to be. Not because he expects reward, but because he refuses to be played. He doesn't play fair, he plays intelligent. And if he plays honest, it's not because he's afraid of being cruel, it's because he's already calculated the cost of every move. So stop pretending. Stop pretending your goodness will save you. Stop pretending that being overlooked is noble. Stop pretending that if you just stay patient, the world will finally see your worth. The world only sees what you make it see. And no one will hand you space that you haven't already claimed. You're not here to become ruthless, but you are here to become real. And real men don't wait for fairness. They build clarity. They move with direction. They choose power with soul. Let's keep going. You've been told your whole life to be a good man, but no one ever stopped to define what that actually means. So you followed the code. Be polite, be patient, be loyal, be soft-spoken, be safe. And for a while it worked. People liked you. You avoided conflict. You were respected, or so you thought. Until you looked around and realized that the world doesn't reward good men. It rewards powerful ones. Not power as dominance, power as presence, power as consequence. Because in the real world, niceness without strength becomes invisibility. And invisibility is death to the masculine soul. Machiavelli never told men to be immoral. He simply warned them against being ineffective. When he wrote about virtue, he wasn't talking about morality. He was talking about strength, adaptability, fierce wisdom. Virtue is the ability to respond to life with power, not perfection. And here's where the confusion begins. You think your morality is what makes you good. But sometimes your morality is the very thing keeping you weak. You think saying yes makes you cooperative. But sometimes it just makes you afraid to say no. You think apologizing quickly makes you mature. But sometimes it just means you're terrified of disapproval. You think never making people uncomfortable makes you virtuous. But often it just means you're unwilling to speak what's true. What you call goodness, Machiavelli might call cowardice in disguise. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." And before you recoil at that, understand what he meant. He wasn't telling you to become cruel. He was telling you, be respected before you beg to be liked. Be clear before you try to be kind. Be someone whose truth holds weight, not someone whose approval-seeking waters down every word. The modern man is drowning in moral image management. He wants to appear good, more than he wants to be whole. He wants to be seen as emotionally intelligent, but he's disconnected from his core. He wants to be seen as peaceful, but he's swallowed so much silence, he can't find his own voice anymore. That's not goodness, that's erosion. You must ask yourself, what part of me calls itself virtue, but is actually fear wearing a mask. Is your loyalty real, or are you just afraid to walk away? Is your humility real, or are you playing small so no one sees your hunger? Is your forgiveness real, or are you terrified of confrontation? Because if your goodness costs you your clarity, if your virtue costs you your power, if your empathy costs you your boundaries, it is no longer virtue, it's self-erasure. A strong man doesn't need to be cruel, but he's not afraid of his edge. He doesn't need to be feared, but he's not terrified of being misunderstood. He speaks calmly, but you feel what's behind it. He leads with presence, not performance. And people listen, not because he demands it, but because he carries weight. That's virtue. Machiavelli understood this. The world is not ruled by ideals, it's ruled by tension, by perception, by strength balanced with strategy. So stop asking the world to reward your intentions. Start asking yourself, is my morality making me powerful or just making me passive? Who benefits from my goodness, me or the people who exploit it? What would it look like to be good and grounded, virtuous and dangerous, kind but not harmless? Because you're not here to be a servant of perception, you're here to be a master of presence. That begins when you stop confusing safety with soul. Here's a truth most men choke on. It doesn't matter who you are. It matters what you signal. You can have the deepest wisdom, the purest intent, the most authentic soul. But if you can't communicate that, if people don't feel it the moment you enter a room, it won't matter. You will be overlooked, dismissed, passed over, and eventually bitter about a world that never really gave you a chance. Machiavelli didn't say this to insult you. He said it because he observed it again and again. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." And he was right. You don't live in a world of inner truth. You live in a world of outer reaction, the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you carry your energy, the timing of your words, the strength of your silences. These are your weapons, or your shackles. You've been trained to believe appearances are shallow, that optics are manipulative, that trying to be seen is ego. So you hide your edge, you play small. You tell yourself, I don't need to impress anyone, and in doing so, you disappear. You fade into the background, unwilling to be misunderstood but guaranteed to be invisible. But here's what you must understand. Mastering perception is not about lying. It's about alignment. It's about making the outside match the inside, so that who you are internally can finally carry weight externally. The man who ignores perception gets played. The man who obsesses over perception loses himself. But the man who understands it, he moves like a storm in still water. He's the one who walks into a room and doesn't have to speak to be heard. He doesn't have to beg for validation because his energy has already said everything he needs to say. He's not performing, he's projecting. So let's get brutally honest. If your truth is powerful, but you speak with hesitation, people won't believe your words. If you're capable, but you posture like you're apologizing for existing, they won't trust you with responsibility. If you have a strong heart, but you look at the floor when you talk, they won't feel your soul. This isn't about looks, it's about presence, about intention, about claiming the moment with your body, not just your beliefs. This is what Machiavelli saw in leaders. Not charm, command, not noise, signal, not effort, essence. And today, more than ever, we are ruled by image. Social media, sound bites, headlines, reels, narratives. You can resist it, or you can learn to use it. Use your voice, use your eyes, use the tempo of your speech, use your stillness like a weapon, use your silence to amplify tension. This isn't manipulation, this is mastery. Ask yourself, when I enter a room, do people know what I stand for without me explaining it? When I speak, do I speak with weight or just volume? Do I carry contradiction, saying I want to be seen, but hiding in how I show up? Because if people can't feel you, they'll make you up. And once they make you up, they'll treat you based on that version, not the real you. You are always being perceived. The question is by whom and in what light. And here's where most good men fail. They think truth should be enough. But Machiavelli knew better. Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see a thing, but few can feel it. Your essence? It doesn't float in a cloud above your head. It's translated through how you carry yourself. So if you're done being misunderstood, done being passed over, done watching others with less depth take the stage you know you're ready for, then stop rejecting power, stop hiding behind false humility, and stop pretending that just being real is enough in a world that's watching how you move before it even listens to what you say. Align your outer with your inner. Stand like someone who knows himself, speak like someone who doesn't owe an explanation, and walk like someone who's not here to ask for space, but to command it. You don't need to fake anything. You need to own what's already inside you. Machiavelli didn't write for manipulators. He wrote for those ready to stop being manipulated. And perception is your first weapon. You've been told your whole life that emotion is weakness, that men who show feelings are fragile, that strength means stillness, that composure means silence. So you buried your rage, muted your hunger, filtered your words, softened your fire, and called it maturity. But here's the twist. None of that made you powerful. It just made you manageable. Because emotion was never the problem. Untrained emotion was. Machiavelli warned rulers to guard their image, not because he hated emotion, but because he understood its danger when left unchecked. The prince must appear composed, stable, and in control, even if he isn't. He didn't say, "Don't feel." He said, "Don't bleed where your enemies can drink from you." And in today's world, your enemy isn't just a rival kingdom. It's the perception of others. It's the people watching, testing, probing, looking for the cracks in your emotional armor. And if you can't manage your emotional state, you don't just lose power, you become a puppet, pulled by whoever knows how to press your buttons. So let's get clear. Emotion is not weakness. Emotion is raw voltage. It's energy. It's depth. It's intuition. It's force. The question isn't, should I feel? The question is, can I hold what I feel without being consumed by it? The modern man is lost in two extremes. One lives disconnected, stoic on the outside, numb on the inside. He calls it self-control, but it's actually fear of breaking down. The other is overly exposed, sharing every wound like a badge of honor. He calls it vulnerability, but it's actually a request for emotional rescue. Both are unstable. Both are unsafe, and both are ineffective. Because real strength doesn't come from emotional avoidance, and it doesn't come from emotional exhibition. It comes from emotional authority. You want to be unshakable? Stop asking the world to manage how you feel. Start learning to feel without losing control. When you're triggered, breathe, don't bite. When you're angry, feel it, but don't weaponize it blindly. When you're afraid, acknowledge it, but don't shrink. Use it. Anger is clarity. Sadness is depth. Fear is a compass. When trained, emotion becomes the most precise weapon a man can wield, and the most trustworthy guide. Machiavelli didn't fear emotion. He just understood it as a tool of power. To rule effectively, you had to appear calm when boiling inside. To win wars, you had to control the battlefield within, not just around you. A prince must be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. The lion is your fire, your emotion, your drive. The fox is your control, your timing, your restraint. You need both. Without the fox, the lion burns down everything. Without the lion, the fox is just clever, but spineless. Think about the last time you let emotion drive your reaction. What did it cost you? The argument you escalated. The woman you chased after too long. The boundary you failed to set. The truth you swallowed because it felt easier. And what about the times you went numb? Said nothing. Did nothing. Let people walk over you while you smiled politely and died a little inside? These aren't emotional wins. These are emotional leaks. Now imagine something else. Imagine a version of you who feels everything, but collapses into nothing. A version who can look anger in the eye and breathe. Who can hear judgment and not flinch. Who can love deeply, but walk away if respect is lost. Who can enter a room and change the temperature just by being present. Not loud, not aggressive. Just anchored. That's emotional power. That's what Machiavelli would call dangerous presence. Not explosive, just undeniable. So ask yourself, where do I collapse when I feel too much? Where do I fake being calm because I'm afraid to feel at all? Who taught me that emotion was either weakness or weapon, never wisdom? It's time to unlearn that, not by suppressing your emotional nature, but by refining it. Your feelings are not here to be managed by others. They are messages from the deepest parts of you, but if you can't hold them, someone else will learn how to use them. So hold your fire, channel your sadness, speak from your gut, stand in your truth, even when your voice trembles. Let emotion sharpen you, not shatter you. That's the edge the world feels, even when you say nothing. You think you're unlucky, that life hasn't given you the right chances, that other men had better timing, better connections, better fate. But Machiavelli would look you in the eye and say, it wasn't luck that failed you, it was your preparation. Because fortune, Fortuna as he called it, is not a goddess of kindness. She is unpredictable, chaotic, sometimes cruel, but she is not completely random. She shows up to the man who is already moving, already sharpening, already building. Fortune is a woman, Machiavelli wrote, and if you want to master her, you must beat her down. No, not in the literal sense. Not in violence or force, but in aggression of intent, in boldness, in your refusal to sit still and wait for things to improve. Because most men don't fail because fortune abandoned them. They fail because they never became men who could receive what fortune offered. You say you're waiting for clarity, waiting for the right time, waiting to feel more ready, more confident, more aligned. But fortune doesn't wait for your self-esteem to catch up. She favors men who act. Especially when the outcome isn't guaranteed. You don't need certainty. You need courage. Look around your life. The opportunities you missed, were they really stolen, or did you hesitate? The woman who slipped through your fingers, was it fate or fear? The job you didn't take, the move you didn't make, the words you never said. That wasn't fortune. That was you, unprepared, unsure, unavailable to your own destiny. This is what Machiavelli knew. Fortune is like a river. It floods, it rages, it destroys. But the wise man builds dams. He channels the force. He doesn't wait for calm water, he prepares for the storm. So when chaos arrives, he doesn't drown, he rises. You must ask yourself, where in my life am I still waiting to feel ready before I move? Where am I calling it patience, but it's actually fear dressed as strategy? What am I preparing for endlessly without ever launching? Because preparation without action is paralysis, and timing without readiness is wasted. Stop trying to control the storm. Start becoming the man who thrives in it. Think of every warrior who trained for a battle that may never come. They didn't train out of fear. They trained because preparation creates identity. You are what you practice, not what you preach, not what you promise, what you do daily. So sharpen your speech, fortify your body, refine your presence, build the skills that no one can take from you. Because one day fortune will knock. And the question won't be, are you lucky? It'll be, are you ready? We live in a culture that loves to romanticize the breakthrough, but no one talks about the groundwork. Everyone wants to win. Few are willing to train when no one is watching, to suffer in silence, to build in the dark. But that's where your edge is born. In the places where most men quit. In the seasons where nothing makes sense, but you keep going anyway. Not for applause, not for followers, but because you refuse to be caught unprepared again. This is what it means to dance with Fortuna. Not to chase her, not to pray for her, but to move like she's already watching you. And when she arrives, unexpected, unannounced, you'll already be moving, not reacting, responding, not shocked, focused. Machiavelli didn't promise victory. He promised leverage, and leverage belongs to the man who builds before the need arises, who trains before the test, who speaks before the silence becomes self-betrayal, who leads before anyone hands him permission. This man doesn't ask if he's lucky, he asks if he's equipped. So stop chasing fortune like a ghost. Start crafting yourself into the kind of man who makes fortune irrelevant. You don't need her approval, you need your own preparation. And once that's in place, fortune will bow to you, not the other way around. There's a reason you're not taken seriously. It's not because you're not smart, not because you're not kind, Not because you're not well-intentioned, it's because you're not dangerous. You've made yourself too soft, too agreeable, too easy to overlook. You've learned how to be liked, but not how to be respected. And deep down you know it. You feel the tension every time you swallow your truth. Every time you avoid conflict. Every time someone crosses a line you never dared to draw. There's a type of man the world respects without being told to. He doesn't need to shout, he doesn't need to threaten. His very presence says, you won't play with me, you won't bend me, you won't break me. That man is dangerous, not because he's violent, but because he's fully awake. He's anchored, he's seen his shadow, and he's made peace with the fire inside him. You want to know what power looks like? It's the ability to walk away from manipulation, from chaos, from dependency, with nothing but your soul intact. It's the man who can feel rage and not be consumed by it, who can feel love and not collapse into it, who can feel fear and still choose the right move. He doesn't need to be feared, but you damn sure feel his boundary when you cross it. That's not toxicity, that's sovereignty. Machiavelli knew this long ago. He said, it is far safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. And no, he wasn't telling you to be cruel. He was telling you to command presence, because love without strength is manipulation bait, and strength without soul is tyranny. But the man who combines clarity with conscience, that man becomes a force of nature. He doesn't beg for respect, he embodies it. He doesn't try to be dominant, he just doesn't shrink. He doesn't perform masculinity, he inhabits it. He knows the difference between being polite and being powerful. So ask yourself, do people trust my silence because it's grounded or because it's passive? Do I intimidate others with my truth or make them comfortable with my softness? Do I move like someone who can hold power without needing to flaunt it? If the answer is no, you're not dangerous yet. You're still digestible, still trying to be liked, still trying to earn space in rooms where you should already own the floor. Being dangerous doesn't mean you hurt people. It means you stop letting people hurt you. It means your word has weight, your presence has posture. Your no doesn't come with a 10-minute explanation, and your yes isn't just emotional debt wrapped in performance. There's a fire inside you. It's not there to be extinguished, it's there to be wielded, but only if you're brave enough to hold it with discipline, to refine it, to carry it into the world without apology. This is what the modern world fears the most. A man who's no longer afraid of himself. A man who's seen his inner chaos and organized it. You don't need to dominate others. You need to stop being dominated by your own hesitation. You don't need to prove you're a man. You need to become one. In body, in soul, in silence, in strength. And once you do, you'll notice something strange. The people who used to test you don't anymore. The situations that used to drain you disappear, and the life that felt so far away starts bending toward you. Because the moment you become dangerous with soul, the game changes. You were told that if you stayed good, stayed honest, stayed humble, the world would reward you. But the world doesn't work that way. It doesn't reward your intentions. It rewards your ability to move with clarity in a system that's not built for purity. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He didn't write about how the world should work. He wrote about how it does. And what he showed us is this. The people who win aren't always the best. They're the ones who know how to read the room. They know how to hold their emotions like weapons, not wounds. They know how to walk into a situation with presence, not performance. And most importantly, they've stopped pretending the game doesn't exist. This doesn't mean you become fake, or cruel, or cold. It means you stop waiting to be saved by your goodness. You stop hoping someone will give you the life you haven't claimed. You stop thinking that silence equals strength, when sometimes silence is just fear, dressed in spiritual language. You weren't born to shrink, to obey, to be endlessly digestible. You were born to move with truth and edge. You were born to become dangerous with soul, to master strategy without losing your humanity, to live with power without needing to dominate. That's the difference between the men who rise and the men who spend their lives wondering why no one ever picked them. So if this stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Don't just nod and scroll. Reflect, move, speak, act. Because you're either playing the game or you're being played. And the moment you see that clearly, everything starts to shift. If this message struck a nerve, if it woke something sleeping inside you, don't keep scrolling like it didn't matter. Like the video, drop a comment, and hit subscribe. This is not entertainment, it's a wake-up call. And if you're ready to stop waiting, this is where your move begins. No more performance, no more permission. Let the world feel you. Welcome to the edge.